Felicia Sonmez has been relentless on Twitter this week following the suspension of her Washington Post colleague, Dave Weigel. Now, for those who haven't been following this saga closely, you have no idea what you're missing. It's glorious. Washington Post reporter Dave Weigel was suspended for a month, an entire month, with no pay for retweeting a joke tweet that was described as sexist by some. Then Felicia called it out, called it to the Post's attention. Her coworker, Lisa Rain, has now since asked her to please stop the online attacks against other members of the newsroom that are unfolding in public. After the executive editor at the Post, Sally Busby, sent a memo to staff reiterating the paper's values against racist or sexist behavior, Briahna replied to all and said, does our company social media policy not apply to Lisa Rain for telling Felicia Sonmez to stop on Twitter? In all honesty, her comment doesn't really sound collegial to me.
Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. CNN's Oliver Darcy added that reporters are getting frustrated with the infighting because their own sources are asking about the drama unfolding inside the Washington Post.
And we are on day 7 of this.
It's been all week.
Again, as I said last time we talked about this, I know Dave Weigel. I'm friendly with Dave Weigel, and I don't have any sort of relationship with Felicia Sonmez, but she's no fan of the work we do at Reason. We criticized her Me Too story. But it's still going. She's still, after very clear instructions, the Washington Post editor said, look, people, if you have problems, we discuss them internally. We don't tolerate sexism. We have punished Dave Weigel. And
disproportionately, I would argue.
Very aggressively. And yet she is still going on these tweet threads describing the inadequacies of the workplace environment, which eventually prompted this colleague, Lisa Rain, to just respond, please stop.
Please stop. Yeah, I said this last time. I'll say it again. To the extent that there was sympathy for her position and that people agreed that it was a sexist joke, rather, there can be no conversation about the quality of the joke now or what this means about Dave Weigel as a person or what his deep-seated beliefs are. All of that pales in comparison to this vendetta that's now been waged on Twitter for the last few days. It's ridiculous. And I really wish these people would understand that they're getting in their own way, because it's kind of symbolic of the way that these fights unfold in the broader popular sphere all the time. But a part of this conversation that we haven't really nailed down on is the idea that these newsrooms really want you to have a public presence on Twitter. They encourage you to have a public persona because they know it helps the traffic on their websites, and creating little media celebrities.
Less and less, but yes.
Creating little media celebrities out of their star reporters benefits the paper up and until this private sphere, which is ultimately a private sphere with you operating on these websites, crosses and commingles with the employment sphere. And so they are basically setting up the conditions for reporters increasingly getting caught into these morasses where it's not really clear if something is an internal dispute or an external dispute, which is why all of the interactions between coworkers at the very least that are happening, I would argue, should be happening offline.
100%. Like at any other workplace. There is no workplace, no functional, healthy workplace where coworkers are allowed to blast each other on social media. It's not something done. It's crazy to think that this is the right way to be like an adult who has gone through college, who has entered the workforce, is trying to be a productive human being, and to think this is the right place to settle your disputes. It's just not done. At any other company, you would fire someone who did this, especially after they've persisted, after you've made it clear that this is that they can't do this.
Right. I'm not telling anybody to work in a corporate environment. I very rarely say anything even remotely positive about my experience working in corporate law. But I have to say that as I've moved through other kind of spaces, political spaces, media spaces, I am constantly shocked by the low threshold of professionalism
in journalism
that is allowed in other kinds of spaces.
Journalism being the very worst.
Because people are younger. Not the women in question here, not the people in question here, but generally speaking, there does tend to be a younger cohort that maybe hasn't spent as much time in grad school or in other kinds of early training or whatever. Whatever the cause, I just don't understand why people don't even think it reflects negatively on them and their own personal brand as they're engaging in these very public tirades.
Well, I feel like they must have been rewarded for this kind of behavior previously, often in some of these elite liberal arts circles. I'm trying not to paint with too broad a brush, but there's a kind of activism around being a victim and offended by everything that gives you a certain kind of attention and power, and a lot of administrators caving to those sorts of people. There's probably a lot of getting your way every time you do this kind of thing that leaves you woefully unprepared for a professional environment where you don't do this.
Okay, we also have conservatives like Ilya Shapiro very performatively quitting his job and then painting himself as a cancel culture warrior when he has made the choice that he is able to make, a very privileged choice to quit a very prestigious law job at Georgetown University and then go on the circuit talking about how he was pushed out. I mean, you can think that he got undue criticism, and I think that's fair to say that some people were reading his tweet in bad faith. But he also, here on this show, I would argue, failed to really articulate a rationale for why he thought that his Supreme Court choice was objectively the best one. And people need to be able to stick to their guns and defend their positions in any context.
But our dispute was he wasn't defending that. He said it was a bad tweet. So he said the wording of the tweet was bad.
But it's not about the wording. It's what the wording means substantively. And words have meaning. You can't sit here as a law professor and pretend that the words that you use, you have to be able to demonstrate an ability to understand why people thought that you were wrong. And to say, you know what, I shouldn't have said objectively because that carved out the idea that there could be an objectively highest qualified black woman in the land. That's what his tweet foreclosed. And I was just hoping that he said that and I would have accepted that and moved on. Unfortunately, I didn't have it. But the point is that everybody is using Twitter.
This is a segment from 2 days ago, by the way. If you didn't see it, you should check it out.
You should check it out.
It's my radar from 2 days ago.
The only reason I bring it up is that because people, I think, behave in ways that are different from how we all behaved historically, because we know we can cultivate a certain kind of audience and play to that audience on Twitter and social media more broadly. A world where you're sitting next to a colleague that you have to see every day, and you would choose to try to publicly humiliate them instead of talk to them, only inures to your benefit if you think you can get a Greek chorus agreeing with you out in the public sphere. In real life, doing something like that would make your water cooler life miserable for the foreseeable future.
Is our friendship and loyalty totally dead? Because now it's emerged that Dave defended her when she took heat for bringing up Kobe Bryant's sexual assault allegation right in the wake of his death. And he defended her there, and you'd think that would have bought a little bit of goodwill, but no.
It's really bizarre, and I gotta say,
be good to people who are good to you. Be a little, be better than this. This is scorched earth.
It doesn't make women look good in the context of a tweet that was making fun of women's behavior.
No, it does not. I will let you say that, not me. Sanmez's tirade against her peers has drawn the attention of The View. Let's watch.
Well, you know what? Then let's be the example we hope to see in the world, because right now, I mess up. I hope people have grace when I mess up, and it depends on how big you mess up. He retweeted a joke that was inappropriate. He was called out. He deleted it. He apologized. She is still going. And she is still tweeting
he was one of the people that supported her when she tweeted about Kobe Bryant's rape allegations. So I was very surprised that she continued.
She's still going right now.
She's still going. And there's a social media policy. Yeah.
So she sounds a little nervous.
Well, I was a little surprised that even after the editor-in-chief said, let's handle this internally, she continued arguing on Twitter. I mean, Twitter is not the real world. They're like 22% of the United States is on Twitter. And of that 22%, even fewer are active. I don't know why she is so intent on fighting sexism and discrimination and harassment
on Twitter
online. Why not write an article for the Washington Post, which is where you're employed?
That was a good segment. They really handled that one pretty well.
When you've lost The View, you've lost ladies of The View, you've lost the thread.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, it's the kind of performative Twitter behavior that is rewarding, but it is increasingly not even rewarding. I've said this on the show before that engagement on Twitter seems to be down, or it doesn't drive traffic to articles or videos nearly as much anymore. So I'm just having like a constantly negative experience on Twitter, and but the upside used to be you would get people reading your articles. Now it's just the negative experience without much upside.
Because
so I don't know what I'm doing.
Are you sure you want to retweet this? Do you want to read it before you retweet it?
Oh, I hate that.
No, I wrote it.
I wrote it. I have read it. I wrote it. I don't need to do that. So I do find myself spending less and less time on Twitter. But
I do too. Maybe it's the kind of the poison pill. It's built into the experience to save us all from. It's like what the left says about capitalism, that it's sows the seeds of its own destruction. You don't have to do anything to bring it down.
It's contradictions. Well, we're still kind of waiting for
Twitter,
it to collapse.
capitalism. Let's see if Elon Musk saves it all.
Yeah, we'll have to find out. Tomorrow on Rising, Ryan Grimm and Emily Jashinsky will have a great show for you as always. And then there will be a guest host in for me beginning of the next week. So treat her well.
Be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss any content. And for those of you who like to listen while on the go, that's me. We are available now anywhere you listen to podcasts.
Yes, check that out. And we'll see you next week. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.